That was easy. No, it wasn't. Just buy one. Don't do this. Alright, the next thing I'm going to work on is getting my fuel line made up. This is one that came off the truck. The fuel line came off here, which is right beside the valve cover. Well, now that my fuel inlet is at the very back of the engine on the left side, I don't need this extra bend here in it, and I don't want to just straighten it out because then it'd be way low. I'd like to be able to get it up higher, get a wrench on it. This is just a 3/8 coated brake line and then a weld-on -6 fittings. So I'm going to get the brake line bent to match this, except for right here it'll go straight up into the truck instead of out beside the valve cover. So I'll just copy everything on here. Alright, that there looks pretty close, and that took 17 minutes to bend that line. And next I got to do is cut it off where I think I need to have it fit, and then weld these ends on here. Alright, I got my fuel line made, I think. I haven't tried it out yet. It's pretty close to the other one. I'm sure I'll have to do just a little bit of minor bending once I get it in. I got the ends on and brazed the ends on right there, painted the ends up in black because they're bare metal. Alright, I got the hard fuel line ran. You can see where it comes up right there, just above the valve cover right at the very back. I can actually get to it with a wrench with the intake on. So now it's time to move on to the next step. Alright, had a little bit of a mishap last night. I was out here filling in the hole where the PCV was at from the factory, and then I was going to remill the whole thing back off. Ended up having problems with it wanting to chatter, and then ended up going clean through it right there. I didn't realize how thin this thing was. It's kind of deceiving because it's real thick right here, but then in here it's just tissue paper thin. So I have another one of these. It'd be no big deal to go ahead and knock it back down, make it just like this, but I got to doing some measuring, and I think I'm just going to make a whole new one. Doing some digging around in the shop, found a piece of aluminum basically the exact size I need. So I'm going to machine this one down into a valley plate and then run some recessed bolts in it so it'll be nice and flush, and mill this one back down. It's filthy dirty right now. Alright, for the next part of this I'm going to mark out where all the bolt holes are. I have the original ls7 plate clamped onto my flat aluminum. And then I use these transfer punches. You can get these at Harbor Freight. They come in real handy. Come in a whole bunch of different sizes. They're pretty cheap too. You use the living daylights out of these things. So you just stick them in the hole, find the right size, and hit it with the hammer, and it'll transfer dead center where your hole needs to be drilled. Some of those holes were just a little bit smaller than others because these holes aren't really machined out. They're just kind of cast in there, so I kind of bounced around between these two. Next step is just to drill out all these holes that I have punched here. Alright, Alright, now that I got all these holes drilled, I gotta flip it right side up actually, because I drilled these from the back side the way they were marked. And then I gotta chamfer the holes for those recessed bolts. See, they fit really good now. Just a hair bit below so I can machine the top of it off. Now I'll just double check the fitment on it, make sure it fits on the block, and then I'll come over here and mill the top of it off. I do not claim to be any type of machinist. I'm a hobbyist at the best. Don't criticize me for my clamps. I have a good appreciation for the people who do this for a living. You don't necessarily pay for the time it takes to do the machine work. You pay for the setup time to put the piece on there. It takes forever. That was easy. No, it wasn't. Just buy one. Don't do this. Alright, the next thing I need to work on is making a bung for my oil pressure sensor. So I have some solid aluminum bar stock here. I'm going to mill it down to about the right size. I'm going to drill and tap it. And then I'm going to cut it off at a slight angle so that way it'll clear my throttle bodies. Because the other one barely cleared it. So I figure if I put a little bit of an angle on it, this will be perfect. Alright, got my oil pressure fitting bung almost done. This was a solid piece of bar stock. I milled off the edges so I could clamp it in the vise. Then I took a 1 1/4 inch hole saw, drilled down through it. Then I used a 9/16 drill and then a 16 by 1/5 tap for the oil pressure sensor. Now I just got to cut it off around there. I figured I'd spare the details of showing you all that. Alright, I got the bung almost done. Cut the outside of it off. Now I just got to cut that off at a slight angle, then I can weld it on. Alright, I got the valley cover all done. Got my bung welded on. Way too much time in this. It's not worth your time and effort to make one yourself unless you're just bored. Probably have about 5 hours in making this, so it's way too much time. But it's ready to bolt on now. Alright, there it is installed. The 100% unnecessary valley cover. At least the way this one's made. Don't waste your time and make one. Just buy one. They're like $40 and you get the bolts. So, but I like it, so, and I didn't want to wait to order one, so that's another reason I made it. Knocking some more little things out today. Got the vacuum line ran from the booster down to my vacuum canister. Was able to use part of the Volvo Y fitting there. The other part goes into my HVAC controls, so it's got a check valve built into that Y block right there, and then it goes back down to the canister. I decided to go ahead and hot wire my vacuum canister and pump up. Well, in doing so, I know that this provides a ground. Well, it apparently doesn't provide enough of a ground for a pump because it lasted all of about 5 seconds before I burned the switch up. So this needs to ground to the relay, which I plan on putting a relay in it. So now I have to put a relay in and order another switch. So it'll be a couple days before I get that. Seemed to work alright, but we'll see what happens. It built up some vacuum, so I'll order another switch and wire up a relay to it and fuse it properly. Also, I could probably warranty that switch out since I just bought it, but since it was my fault, I'm not going to warranty it out. So here's the original throttle cable in my truck. And what I did was I cut the cable off like so right there. Then I ground the cable down to where it was flush with the end of that little crimp thing they had. Then I drilled another hole through it. And then I cut the cable off to the approximate length I needed and marked where this needed to be at full throttle. Then I pulled the cable back through the firewall and crimped this piece back on, and it actually worked really good. So I'll show you now that I have full throttle. Alright, the intake is bolted on with just 4 bolts so I can do some testing on it. And here's the throttle cable. I do have a little bit of slop in it from when the pedal goes all the way back, but it doesn't feel weird inside the truck. So I'm going to say it's okay. But anyways, when I go full throttle, it feels normal. It doesn't feel weird or like I have very little pedal travel. As you can see, there I am just cruising around, and then I want to get on it and whack some coyote motors. I just go BAM! Like that. So, wax coyote motors, cruise around with the other LSs, just like so. If you want to just go with the coyote motor, you go about there. If you want to wax it, go there. So, she works pretty good. I got the intake all bolted on. Use some chrome bolts, Allen heads with lock washers on them. And I put just a dab of anti-seize on them just to make sure they don't seize in the head. The lock washer should hold them on. I had to do a little bit of finagling back there at the wiring. It's the only part I'm really not that thrilled about with this car is so much wiring in the back right there. There's just really nothing I can do about it. Got the injectors all wired on, and the only thing I have left to do before driving it is get that fuel line hooked up from my hard line there to my rail there, and then my steam ports. I need to get a couple bolts for those and run the hose over the radiator. Figure out where I'm going to set the intake air temperature sensor, and then redo the vacuum catch can wiring. I gotta get it wired up, and I'm waiting on a switch again since I burned that other one up. Went ahead and pulled the cruise control off for now. It was being a royal pain with everything back there, and when I saw the bracket wasn't quite going to work with it, I decided just to pull it off for now. It's not like I'm going to use it. I don't think I used it anyways, but it's just nice to say it's on there and it works. But it'll probably go on a little later date if I decide to ever take this thing on a long road trip or something. But anyways, there it is. Alright, that's going to do it for this update. I said the truck would be ready to tune last time. It basically is, so I kind of met my goal. The next video you see will hopefully be of us, me and my buddy Pete, trying to get this thing running. I do predict problems with the idle capability of this thing. So I told him if he could come over and at least get this thing to idle. That's my main concern. Then we can go out and drive it around, make sure everything's good. But once we get the idle set, then we can go out and tune it. The individual throttle bodies, I have one on a race car, so I know how finicky they can be as far as airflow per cylinder. At least I do have them all kind of connected, so it should equal out the air in each one, but I still want to get all the butterflies measuring the same. I'll use a thin feeler gauge on them. And the only thing I have left to do is get the catch can wired up, or the vacuum pump wired up for the catch can, steam port, and the air intake temp sensor. So that's all I have left. I should easily have that done by Saturday, Friday or Saturday. And if his schedule's open and my schedule's open, we'll go ahead and see if we can get this thing to fire off. And at least get you a video of something of it sort of running, maybe. Hopefully it is running. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.